Hello everyone. You can see I'm dressed up, it's super cold and we are reading our Snow Merchant book, and something really exciting happens in this chapter, so I thought I'd better get cozy. So chapter 5, the suitcase opens. The Snow Merchant undid the straps on his suitcase and flicked the catches. "Stand well back," he cried, his coat billowing about him, his eyes blue and electric. He lifted the lid and out it soared. The walrus gasped. The goggler rubbed her glasses. Letty looked at the ceiling. "Is that," she said to him, her breath catching, "is that snow?" The Snow Merchant looked down his long, jagged nose at Letty and laughed. "Is that snow?" he repeated mockingly. "Of course it's not snow. Haven't you ever seen a nimbostratus before?" Letty hadn't, never in her life. Above the armchairs and the pianola there was a cloud. It swirled around the ceiling like it was desperate to escape, but Letty had done her job well, and there were no gaps for it to squeeze through. The Snow Merchant wafted it away from the windows with his spoon. "Now you understand why I told you to plug all those drafty cracks," said the Snow Merchant. "It's very good at escaping those." Letty was speechless. She tried to move her mouth, but nothing came out. She tried to say, "How?" She tried to say, "What?" "Why," she managed at last, "is there a nimbostratus in my inn?" And I looked up nimbostratus. Here it is here. There's a picture of a nimbostratus cloud. It's that kind of cloud you see just before it's going to rain or snow, really thick and dark and heavy. "It's here because I let it out of my suitcase," said the Snow Merchant. "And I let it out of my suitcase so I can make snow for my customer, you." "But I don't even know what snow is," said Letty. She pointed to the cloud. "And I certainly don't want that." "Oh, of course you don't. It's just a nimbostratus. Just," he searched for the right word, "it's just equipment." "Are you an alchemist or a merchant?" "I'm both," he said. "I sell what I make, and what I make is snow." Letty thought for a moment. "Alchemists use cauldrons, not clouds." "Well, think of it as a giant pot." He sounded pleased with himself. "A giant pot full of snow. And before that pot can overflow, we must all be cold enough. All of us." He showed his phial of ether. The goggler's huge eyes narrowed. "That," she said, "is what ruined my pipe. It is ether, an alchemical for changing temperature. Drink 1 drop and your fingers turn blue. 2 drops and your feet freeze to the ground. 3 drops lets me work with snow. I've never taken 4, that would be dangerous." The Snow Merchant rubbed his temples, that's that bit of your forehead up there, rubbed his temples with his hands. Then he tipped back his head and opened his mouth. Letty shivered. She thought he was about to scream. He raised his hand and squeezed 1, 2, 3 drops of ether onto his tongue. His whole body tensed inside his coat. Blue nails dug into white palms. The drops were making him colder. Dirty frost formed around his boots, and icicles dripped from his nose. His eyes turned from light blue to electric blue to ultramarine. "Let the cold come," he said through clenched teeth. "Let it settle deep." "Are you all right, sir?" asked Letty, biting her lip. "Of course I'm not," he snapped. "I don't enjoy the ether freezing my blood and shattering my bones, but I'm the only one who can create snow, and to create it I must be cold." He raised his pipette at the guests, at Letty. "So must you be cold. Open your mouths, please." "I will not," said the goggler. "You just did," said Letty, not quite meaning to. "Don't be facetious," she answered back. "What's facetious?" whispered Noah. "I think it's Bohemian for cheeky," murmured Letty, "but I'm probably wrong." "This is most unusual," said the walrus. "If you want to see snow," the Snow Merchant exclaimed crisply, "I must first make snow, and for me to make snow, the conditions must be right. and presently the heat from each of you is ruining everything. Now, just a drop. It's quite safe. Even if I emptied the whole bottle down your throat, you wouldn't die." He smiled icily. "You'd just never be warm again." Letty started to shiver and wondered what it would be like if she never stopped. The snow merchant continued, "I myself must take ether in order to handle snow, 3 drops twice a day. You'll feel the coldness, but in an hour or so that will leave. Just 1 drop." There was a silence as everyone considered the choice before them, though for Letty it wasn't a choice at all. So what's their choice? They can either take the ether and watch him make snow, or I guess they'll have to leave. The mystery had got hold of her. What was snow? Why was she the customer? Where was all this going? She looked over to the goggler and the walrus and saw that the mystery had a hold on them too. Meeting an alchemist was a rare thing. Seeing alchemy with your own eyes was even rarer. What would you do? Would you stay and take the ether and get really cold so you could watch the wizardry, the magic? I think I might. Click, click went the false teeth of the old ladies as they opened their mouths. "Excellent," said the snow merchant, giving them a drop each. Noah was next, and then Letty, last in line. She stuck out her tongue like everyone else had done. The snow merchant squeezed the pipette, and the ether fell. Letty felt like a fire inside her had suddenly gone out. Numbness filled her mouth and spread down her neck. She shivered and stamped her feet, but she could no longer feel her toes. "Your lips are blue," the walrus said. "So is your moustache," said Letty, and the walrus frowned. "Noah, there's an icicle on your stalk, and look, you've even got a little icicle beard." She tried to laugh, but she could only shiver. They huddled together under the nimbostratus, their breath coming in faint white plumes from their mouths, and watched. The snow merchant took the bucket of grimy water and threw it into the cloud, which swallowed up every drop, rumbling greedily as it did so. He wafted the cloud into the middle of the room until it was above the rug, and then he held up his big wooden spoon. He let a few drops of ether fall upon the end of the spoon and began to stir this cloud with great, slow, circular movements that became faster and faster until the cloud was swirling and the snow merchant was whirling underneath, and Letty's head was dizzy from the smell and the sound, and then all of a sudden, out of the cloud, there fell something. 4 amazed pairs of eyes watched it fall, tiny and pure white, drifting onto the rug without a sound. The snow merchant stirred the cloud again, and all at once there were hundreds, thousands of tiny somethings tumbling from the cloud onto the floor. "Lady and lady," said the snow merchant with a flourish, "boy and girl, I present to you snow." Letty couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but watch the snow fall. Have you seen snow fall? It's the most beautiful thing because it's so silent and soft. "What are they?" the goggler asked. She crawled over to the snow on the rug. Her scopical glasses had all their lenses flicked down and her eyes were huge. Are they diamonds?" "They are! They are!" "More precious than diamonds," said the snow merchant, his voice sinking to a whisper. "Each one tiny, unique, a treasure to behold." Letty was amazed and angry and afraid. There was more wealth, that's more riches, more wealth lying on her rug now than was in the whole of Barter, the town. Riches that Letty would never have, even if she was a landlady her whole life. He expected her to buy these diamonds with nothing in her pocket. The goggler began to babble very fast, sometimes in Bohemian. Letty could only just make out the words. "Oh, I must have snow, and with snow I'll make the greatest jewellery the world has ever seen." "I will wear it," announced the walrus. "Jewellery studded with snow." It seemed they had both forgotten about the chandelier earrings. There was something more incredible by far, the snow. "I will be the greatest jeweller in the world. I will look magnificent. They will finally make me a duchess, the most elegant duchess in all of Lapland." But the snow merchant shook his head. You are not my customers." The walrus laughed. "But we are rich." The snow merchant shrugged. "Normally your riches would be of interest to me, but Letty Peppercorn is the only customer here I will sell to." Letty looked at all the snow diamonds, a gleaming pile on the rug, and wondered how that could possibly be. "Name your price," insisted the gobbler. "I don't have one. Not for you." The gobbler held up her long bony fingers. "Look," she cried, 49 gold rings, all from continental weddings that were called off." The snow merchant didn't even glance at them. His blue eyes were fixed on Letty and only her. And still the snow fell. And still the snow fell. "Look," said the walrus, pulling a little hysterically at her fat, hairy ears. "Chandelier and earrings, priceless crystal. You can't refuse." "I can," said the snow merchant. He turned to Letty. "Go on, girl, take them." Letty gulped. He gestured to the drift of snow on the floor, a pile of tiny, perfect diamonds. Letty didn't move, scarcely believing what he was saying. Leaning towards her, he whispered, as if he were sharing a secret. "They're yours." Letty looked at the diamonds of snow on the floor, seeing in her mind's eye the future they promised, a future with no more debts, no more bailiffs, no more rude guests. "But, sir," Letty said, her voice small, "I've got nothing to pay you with." "It's a gift," he said. It sounded too good to be true. A miracle. Only, and this was the only thing, the snow merchant didn't look like an angel. He looked crafty and devious. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "I told you," he said cryptically. "I know a customer when I see one." He was hiding something, she was sure, but his eyes were frozen and Letty could not see past the ice. A fortune, in exchange for nothing. Fumbling with her apron, she tried to make sense of it. In the end, she gave up. "All right, Mr. Merchant, I'll take your snow, thank you." With a long bow, the snow merchant began wafting his snow cloud back into the mahogany suitcase. He left the snow diamonds on the rug. "It was a pleasure doing business with you," he said. "Well, it was hardly business at all," said Noah, mystified. "Thank you," Letty repeated, beaming her biggest smile. "Thank you." Realization was rushing through her. On the rug was a miracle, and it belonged to her. Now everything would be different and better. She suddenly noticed everyone was staring at her, waiting to see what would happen next. It was a strange sensation. Letty was used to being told what to do. She felt a little awkward. "What are you all looking at?" she demanded. "You," said Noah. "You're richer than an Albion princess, after all." "Albion doesn't have a princess," said Letty. "It does now," said the walrus bitterly. Noah grinned. "How does it feel to be rich?" Letty thought for a moment. "It feels cold." "Then we'll warm up," said Noah. "Let's sweat this ether out of our systems any way we can." "Warming up will be easy," said Letty. "I'll brew a cup of tea." She began to laugh. She laughed and laughed for the first time that day, and Noah laughed with her. Even the snow merchant joined in, although it sounded hollow, a little bit like pennies rattling in a jar. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. The walrus and the gobbler didn't smile, didn't laugh, didn't blink. The chandelier earrings seemed worthless now. They muttered to each other, and they looked at the snow. And they looked at the snow. The end of chapter 5.